Do you remember the first time you fell off your bike? Maybe you were one of those people that laid on the ground crying because it hurt. You didn't know what to do. Or maybe you were one of those people that got up and tried again because you were just excited to be trying something new. Regardless of what happened in that moment, you learn what it's like to fall off your bike. You learn what you did wrong, and you probably learned or took a guess as to how you could prevent it next time. But what you probably didn't do is think about the fact that you just created data. What kind of data? Well, there's a number of times you wobbled back and forth. There's the pain you felt when you hit the ground. There's a number of people on the sideline that you thought you could trust but are now laughing at you hysterically. Yeah, All of that is data. To humans, we call this data memories or life experience. And it shapes the way we live our lives, making us more intelligent over time. What's ironic and often misunderstood is that data does the same thing for machines. Just like you didn't know how to ride a bike the first time you plugged one in, no machine has ever been plugged in and knew how to operate. Machines need code as their baseline instructions, and they need data to help make them artificially intelligent. And this is the real reason why companies want access to our data so bad. Because unlike previous eras of work where we used to screw in the nuts and bolts to build machines, today we create the data that makes machines intelligent. Unfortunately, this time around we're not getting paid. And the plan is that once we train the systems, it's time to dump us for the machines. So, for the rest of my time tonight, I'm going to demonstrate exactly how these systems are coming to life and why it's so important that we understand what we're consenting to when we check that little box that says, I agree. Let's start with Google Maps. We've all used Google Maps, right? But have you ever really thought about how it was built? Sure, Google engineers coded the system. Yeah, you're right. But Maps is only as good as it is because billions of us work for Google every single day, taking pictures of our most recent meals, rating and reviewing businesses, pinning new locations that didn't exist before. Without us, Maps wouldn't be the same. Tesla's another example. Do you think Tesla's been training these cars all by themselves? No way, not a chance. Tesla cars have sensors all over them that allow the machines to collect data and become more intelligent over time. That means every single person driving a Tesla is training Tesla's central brain. Oh, but you don't drive a Tesla, so it's not your problem, right? Yeah. Wrong. Does your car have lane assist or self-park or any of those other modern smart features that cars have nowadays? Yeah. Your car has the same sensors and you're doing the same thing. You're just doing it for a bigger corporation, so it takes longer to roll out. But it's coming. Don't worry. And you won't get paid a dime to build those databases. Actually, you'll pay them to build those databases. Just think of that. How about Adobe? Did you know that since 2013, when Adobe switched to Creative Cloud services, they've been collecting data on the way we use their platform? And now they're leveraging that data to create a tool they call Adobe Sensei, which they believe can automate the creative process. Hold on, one more time. Automate the creative process. Yeah, It's coming. But it's not just tech companies that have realized the value of data and want to take advantage of our lack of awareness. Systems like Da Vinci's surgical solutions are sold to hospitals as a more modern, elegant way to perform surgery. But you better believe that at the same time, these doctors are teaching these robots how to operate. Same goes for legal work. In 2016, JP Morgan released a system called Coin to automate the process of analyzing legal documents. That year alone, they displaced more than 360,000 hours worth of labor. Just imagine what's going to happen as the system becomes more intelligent and expands into other areas of business over time. It's happening. I could stand up here for days telling you different products and services, what data they're collecting, and why it impacts our lives, but I only got 10 minutes, so we need to speed this up. All you need to know is that it's not just the burger flippers. It's not just the bricklayers. It's not just the warehouse workers and other forms of labor that Silicon Valley considers to be boring, routine labor that are going to get automated. And when they do, it will be our fault because we consented to it. And this is where my story begins. Everything that we just walked through, on top of the fact that technology companies are creating addictions at a global scale, profiting off the distribution of fake news and disinformation, on top of many other things that you'll never hear about because they have billion-dollar PR teams to cover it up, is why 2 years ago, at age 27, I decided to walk away from a 6-figure salary consulting for Google, sell almost everything I own, and pack up my car, living out of my car to travel the world and educate people about what's really happening inside of Silicon Valley. Since then, I have written a book called Automating Humanity to explain what's happening, why, and how we can resolve these issues in a non-technical language so that we can all be part of this conversation. I've also started Beacon, the Better Ethics and Consumer Outcomes Network, where we are focused on working with technology companies to identify these ethical dilemmas and translate them into better consumer outcomes. Solutions that are good both for us and their bottom line, because that's possible. We then leverage our profits to fund research and educational initiatives with the intention to empower consumers and identify opportunities to accelerate purpose-driven innovation. We do these things because if people like me don't speak out and take action, how are we going to resolve these issues? Journalists don't know how to report on them. Companies have zero interest in helping us move forward. And it's moving so fast that by the time everyone realizes what's going on, it'll be done. It's the perfect crime. But you know what the worst part is? It's perfectly legal. And actually, if you think about it, it's brilliant capitalism. But is it right? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. That's up to us to decide as consumers and voters. So what do? Well, there are a lot of things that need to change if we want to move forward meaningfully. But the one we're here to discuss tonight is the fact that companies have turned billions of us into unpaid machine trainers. And in doing so, they've created a multi-trillion-dollar stream of unpaid, untaxable labor, which, like I mentioned, is brilliant. If you are a company focused on finding the efficiencies in business and driving profit as high as possible, there is no reason to change that. But it needs to change. And I'm not the only one who believes so. Earlier this year, January 2019, Wyoming passed legislation making digital assets a form of personal property. That means that Wyoming citizens have taken a step forward and that they now have a right to own their data and begin to decide how it's allowed to be used. Starting in January 2020, California will also join this movement with the initiation of the California Consumer Privacy Act, where citizens are now given the right to begin to understand what's going on and to erase and control their data. Even further up the ladder, Congress is also discussing these issues in the form of the Consumer Data Protection Act. All of these are signs that a movement has begun, but it's up to us to determine where it ends. Imagine a world in which we own our data and we have a right to determine how it's allowed to be used. Imagine a world in which the terms of services are written in a language that we can understand and reasonably be expected to give consent to. Imagine a world in which we profit off our data instead of giving it away for free to companies that are using it to make billions. As far off as some of these ideas may sound to you, they're not some dream. They are a reality, and there are people working on them. It's coming. But getting there will depend on us acting and demanding more, both of the companies that are running these industries, as well as our legislators who are working so hard to protect us every day, but may be struggling to keep up with the pace of this innovation. It's time that we demand that we own our data and have a fundamental human right to understand what we are consenting to. So, when you leave here tonight, take this with you. Share it with people who couldn't attend. Read more, become informed, and begin to form your own opinion, because we have elections coming up next year, which means we have the opportunity to make change. Let's make 2020 the year we disrupt the disruption that Silicon Valley seems to be so proud of. And begin to take steps towards regaining stability in our lives, our communities, and our futures together. Thank you.